The alien princess was terminally ill. Only one human doctor dared to help her, and she never forgot. The sky above Valaris was always dramatic, like the planet itself had been painted with colors no human eye had ever seen before. She had spent her life walking through palaces of crystal and light, surrounded by advisors, guards, and citizens who adored her. Yet for the past months, all of that had become meaningless. Kelara was sick. The illness had come slowly at first, just fatigue, occasional headaches, and a strange weakness in her limbs. At first, she had dismissed it as stress, the burden of being the heir to the throne. But now, she could barely rise from her bed without someone helping her. The palace physicians had tried every treatment known to Valerian science, yet nothing worked. Every day, she felt the life inside her slipping away like sand through her fingers. The court had been supportive at first, but as time passed, whispers grew louder. They spoke of fate, of destiny, and of the delicate balance of their planet's politics. It was forbidden to seek help from humans. Humans were considered primitive, incapable of understanding Valerian life or healing its royal bloodlines. Many in the court openly mocked the idea of bringing a human doctor here. Some even whispered that it would be dangerous, that humans could never be trusted with their secrets. Kelara, however, did not care for whispers or rules anymore. Desperation had driven her to one thought. If there was even a small chance that a human could save her, she would take it. She had read about humans, about their courage and stubbornness. Humans had survived countless harsh worlds and challenges despite being small and fragile compared to many other species. Perhaps it was their weakness that made them strong in other ways, resilient, curious, inventive. One evening, she made her decision. Using secret communication channels, Kelara sent a message to Dr. Elias Harper, a human physician renowned across galaxies for his skill in xenobiology, the study of alien life and diseases. Elias was a man of curiosity and courage, known for tackling medical problems that no one else dared to try. Some of his colleagues even called him reckless, but Kelara did not care. She needed someone who dared. The reply came faster than she expected. Elias agreed to meet, despite the risk to his career and the danger of stepping into a forbidden world. For Kelara, it was a spark of hope she had not felt in months. Thousands of kilometers away, on a small space station orbiting a blue star, Dr. Elias Harper read Kelara's message over and over. Humans had a saying, "Hope is the thing that moves mountains." Elias had never been certain about the truth of that saying until now. The request was dangerous. If he went, the Valerian court could see it as an intrusion, and the humans back on Earth might face political backlash. Yet the message had a tone of desperation, mixed with intelligence and dignity. He could not say no. Elias prepared for the journey, reviewing everything he could about Valerian physiology and culture. He learned that Valaris was home to many intelligent species, but the royal bloodline had unique biology. Their bodies healed slower from injuries. Their energy systems relied on a bioelectric field unknown to human science, and their immune systems reacted differently to almost every medicine humans knew. A challenge like this would be unlike anything he had faced. Yet the thought of failing did not frighten him as much as the thought of doing nothing. Back on Valaris, Kelara waited nervously. Her room was filled with soft light, filtered through walls of crystal that glowed faintly. She had grown weaker in the past days. Even speaking for long periods exhausted her. She spent hours gazing at the sky, wishing she could reach out and touch it, wishing she had more time. When Elias finally arrived, the palace guards were tense. Humans were unusual in appearance and behavior, and many of them distrusted his motives. But Kelara had arranged everything carefully. She greeted him herself, with a dignity that surprised even Elias. She looked small and fragile compared to the statuesque Valerian guards, yet her eyes burned with determination. "I am Princess Kelara," she said softly. "I have asked you here because no one else can help me." Elias bowed slightly. "I am honored, Princess. I will do everything I can to understand your illness." Kelara's lips curved into the faintest smile. She felt an unexpected relief. For the first time in months, she felt she was not completely alone in her fight. The early days of Elias' work were slow and cautious. Kelara's illness was unlike anything he had encountered. Her bioelectric field fluctuated unpredictably, her cells responded strangely to Valerian medicine, and her immune system seemed exhausted. He took samples, ran tests, and compared them with human and alien physiology data. Every evening, he reported to Kelara in her chamber, explaining his findings in simple terms she could understand. Kelara listened closely. She was impressed by the human's persistence, his refusal to be intimidated by what he did not know. While the Valerian court had grown frustrated by failure, Elias seemed to thrive in the unknown. His human optimism was contagious. Slowly, Kelara felt a small spark of hope that she had not felt in a long time. Despite the professionalism of their interactions, a bond began to grow. Elias admired Kelara's intelligence and courage, while Kelara admired Elias' determination and empathy. In a world where she had been told humans were weak and unworthy, Elias proved otherwise. One evening, a minor setback tested both of them. Kelara's condition worsened temporarily. Her energy dropped, her pulse weakened, and Elias' human remedies seemed less effective. The court was whispering again, demanding he be removed. "It is too dangerous to involve a human," one advisor insisted. "The princess may die, and we will have blamed the wrong species." Elias refused to leave. "I am not here to fight politics," he said calmly. "I am here to save a life. If we fail together, but I will not give up without trying." Kelara watched him and felt a surge of gratitude and admiration. She realized that humans, though small and fragile by Valerian standards, had a strength that was invisible but powerful, the courage to act when everyone else hesitated. Over the next few weeks, Elias worked tirelessly. He experimented with new techniques, combining human medicine with Valerian biotechnology. Slowly, signs of improvement appeared. Kelara's color returned, her energy grew, and her mind became clearer. Every small victory lifted her spirits, and she began to believe in the impossible, that she could survive, perhaps even fully recover. The palace walls, once silent witnesses to despair, now echoed with whispers of awe. Some advisors who had doubted Elias now watched him with cautious respect. Others still resisted, afraid of the implications of a human succeeding where Valerian doctors had failed. But Kelara did not care. Her focus was on life, not politics. One night, as the twin moons of Valaris cast silver light across the palace gardens, Kelara and Elias spoke quietly. "Why did you come?" she asked. "You could have stayed away. Everyone told you it was forbidden, that it was dangerous." Elias smiled faintly. "I could not ignore a life in danger," he replied. "Humans believe in trying even when the odds are against us. We cannot control the universe, but we can act where we can." Kelara looked at him and felt a warmth she had not felt in months. "I never thought a human could be so strong," she said softly. "Strength is not always in size or power," Elias said. "Sometimes it is in courage, in the choice to act when others hesitate." That night, Kelara slept for the first time in weeks without pain. For the first time, she allowed herself to hope. The human doctor who dared to come to her world was proving that life could still be fought for, even against impossible odds. And somewhere deep inside, she made a silent promise. Whoever Elias Harper was, she would never forget him. Elias Harper stepped off the sleek Valerian transport onto the city streets, blinking against the soft glow of crystalline towers. The air was alive with energy. Strange bioluminescent plants lined the avenues, casting shifting patterns of light on the ground. Valaris was unlike any human world he had seen. Its beauty was overwhelming, and its complexity humbling. Yet beneath this splendor lay tension. The court was watching every move he made. The palace had provided a small, secure area where he could work, but the city outside was a constant reminder that he was a stranger here. Every glance from a citizen seemed to measure him, judging his worth. He had been warned. Humans were not always welcomed on Valaris, and his presence might provoke fear or hostility. Elias reminded himself why he was here. Kelara's life depended on him. He could not allow fear to dictate his actions. Taking a deep breath, he began the meticulous process of understanding her illness. The princess's condition had stabilized after the first treatments, but Elias knew that stability was fragile. Her bioelectric field fluctuated unpredictably, and her cells reacted differently than those of any other Valerian. To find a cure, he had to understand not only her biology but also the planet's environment. Valaris itself might be influencing her illness. Elias requested access to the planet's research archives. With permission from Kelara and some sympathetic scientists, He spent hours reviewing data about Valerian physiology, environmental changes, and ancient treatments. He learned that Valaris had shifted subtly over centuries. Its atmosphere, magnetic fields, and energy currents had changed. Some of these changes were natural, others a result of technological expansion. Whatever had once supported Kalara's ancestors might now be harming her. Kalara, though weakened, insisted on accompanying him in small excursions beyond the palace. She wanted to see the city, to feel life beyond her illness. At first, Elias worried about her safety, but she surprised him with her resilience. Even in her fragile state, she walked with purpose, observing everything. The flowing waterways of liquid crystal, the floating gardens of luminous flora, the children playing with tiny levitating creatures. She reminded Elias that life, no matter how delicate, had beauty worth fighting for. One evening, as they sat near a cascading fountain that shimmered with violet light, Kalara spoke quietly. "Elias, do you think I will live?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Elias chose his words carefully. "I believe there is a chance," he said. "It will be difficult and we will face obstacles, but I do not give up easily. If we work together, we can fight this." Kalara nodded. She had learned long ago that hope was a choice, not a guarantee. And in Elias, she found someone who chose hope for her. The real challenge came when Elias began experimenting with the environment itself. He theorized that Kalara's illness might be partly due to the bioelectric shifts in Valaris's atmosphere. Using portable devices, he measured the energy currents around her, discovering fluctuations that could weaken her cells over time. He modified the palace's energy fields to create a stable zone for her to live and heal. It was delicate work. One small miscalculation could make her weaker instead of stronger. Every day was a test of precision and patience. The Valerian scientists watched him closely, some skeptical, others intrigued. Humans had never manipulated Valerian energy in this way. Many doubted he could succeed, yet Elias persisted. He reminded himself that humans thrived where others feared to tread. Adaptability, creativity, and courage were traits that had allowed humans to explore the stars, survive harsh worlds, and solve problems others thought impossible. Kalara's illness was another frontier, and he intended to face it head-on. During his research, Elias discovered an unexpected ally, a young Valerian scientist named Leora. She had grown up watching Kalara suffer and had long wished to help, but she had been constrained by the court's rules. Unlike many others, Leora respected humans' methods, seeing their practical ingenuity as complementary to Valerian knowledge. Together, they began designing treatments that combined human medicine with Valerian biotechnology. Leora introduced Elias to biosculpting techniques, ways of reshaping living tissue using energy fields. At first, Elias found it strange, almost magical, but when combined with human cellular therapy, it had potential. They carefully designed experiments, starting with small tissue samples, then gradually progressing toward Kalara herself. Not all was easy. One afternoon, a major setback occurred. Kalara's pulse spiked unexpectedly, and she collapsed in the palace gardens. Elias rushed to her side, using every technique at his disposal to stabilize her. The court was furious. Some advisors whispered that humans brought chaos, and now Kalara's life hung in the balance because of him. Kalara opened her eyes weakly and whispered, "Do not stop." "I trust you." Those words strengthened Elias. He had faced countless medical emergencies, but trust carried a power he had never felt before. He could not fail, not when someone believed in him so completely. He spent the night monitoring her condition, adjusting treatments and stabilizing her energy fields. By morning, she was breathing steadily again, a faint glow returning to her skin. The days turned into weeks. Slowly, Kalara regained some of her strength. She could walk longer distances, speak for longer periods, and even enjoy brief moments in the city's gardens. Elias documented every change meticulously. The combination of human medicine, Valerian biotechnology, and environmental stabilization seemed to work. As they worked together, Kalara shared stories of her childhood, of the palace festivals, the games with children in the crystal courtyards, and the lessons from her tutors. Elias listened with fascination. Despite her illness, she carried the weight of her responsibilities with dignity and grace. He admired her resilience, the same resilience he saw in humans, mirrored across the stars. One evening, Elias and Leora reviewed the latest test results. The therapy is showing consistent improvement, Leora said cautiously. If this continues, the princess could fully recover in months. Elias nodded, a rare smile crossing his face. We are making progress, but we must remain vigilant. The body is complex, and Valaris is an unpredictable environment. One mistake, and we could undo everything. Leora looked at him thoughtfully. Humans are fearless in ways we rarely understand. You keep trying even when others have given up. Elias shrugged. We have no choice. Trying is all we have. Despite progress, not everyone was pleased. A faction of the court grew restless. Some nobles feared the implications of a human curing the princess. What would it mean for their traditions, their authority, if a human, a so-called primitive species, was the savior of their heir? They began plotting to remove Elias, claiming that his interference could destabilize Valyrian society. Kelara sensed the tension. One evening she told Elias, "They do not understand, but I do. You are helping me when no one else dared. That is worth more than anything they think matters." Elias felt a surge of gratitude. Her trust reminded him why he was here, why humans could face fear and still act with courage. As the weeks passed, the bond between Kelara and Elias deepened. It was not romantic, it was something stronger in its way. It was trust, respect, and shared determination. Kelara had spent months feeling fragile and alone. Now, with Elias' guidance, she felt alive again. One morning, she walked into the palace gardens alone, something she had not been able to do for weeks. Elias and Leora watched from a distance. Kelara touched the flowers, inhaled the crisp air, and felt the warmth of the sun on her skin. She looked at Elias, who nodded from afar and smiled, a smile that spoke of hope, survival, and the beginning of something extraordinary. Elias' work on Valaris was more than medical. It was a bridge between worlds. Through patience, ingenuity, and courage, he showed that humans, though small and fragile, could achieve greatness where others feared to act. Kelara, once resigned to her fate, now faced the future with renewed strength. The city watched silently. In the quiet glow of Valaris, two worlds, human and Valyrian, had begun to understand each other, one small step at a time. And though challenges still loomed, for the first time in months, Kelara felt something she thought she had lost forever: hope. The weeks of careful work began to show real results. Kelara's skin glowed with life again, her energy returned, and she could walk through the palace halls without assistance. Elias Harper had achieved what no Valyrian doctor dared to try. He had begun to reverse the terminal illness of the princess. Word of her improvement spread quietly at first, reaching only those sympathetic to Kelara's plight. But whispers in the palace corridors travel fast, and soon the court divided into two factions, one that marveled at Elias' skill and another that saw him as a dangerous outsider meddling in royal affairs. Despite the growing tension, Elias focused on his work. He had discovered that Kelara's illness was caused by a combination of genetic instability and environmental shifts in Valaris's energy fields. By carefully adjusting the palace's energy matrices and administering a hybrid treatment of human medicine and Valyrian biotechnology, he began to stabilize her condition permanently. Kelara watched him work tirelessly, day and night. There were moments when she feared that he might fail, moments when the court's whispers made her question whether humans could truly be trusted. Yet, each time she looked at Elias, she saw something she had not seen in months: hope. And with hope came courage, the courage to defy tradition, to trust someone from a species her people had long considered inferior. One morning, Elias gathered the necessary equipment for a complex procedure. He called Leora to assist him. "This is it," he said quietly, checking the instruments. "If this works, we could stabilize Kelara's condition fully, but it will be risky. Her body might react unpredictably." Leora nodded, determination shining in her eyes. "I trust you, Elias." "The princess deserves a chance to live." Kelara, though exhausted, insisted on being present. "I trust you," she whispered. "Whatever happens, I am ready." The procedure began. Elias worked with precision, combining human cellular therapy with Valyrian biosculpting. Leora carefully monitored Kelara's energy fields, adjusting them in real time. The room was tense, every second stretching longer than the last. At first, there was no change. Kelara's pulse remained weak and her skin was pale. Then slowly, a subtle warmth spread across her body. Her pulse strengthened and her energy stabilized. The bioelectric readings normalized. For the first time, it seemed that Kelara's body had accepted the treatment. Leora let out a quiet sigh of relief. Elias allowed himself a small smile. "It's working," he whispered. "She's responding." Kilara opened her eyes and smiled faintly. "Thank you," she said, her voice soft but filled with gratitude. "I feel stronger." But not everyone was pleased. The faction of the court that opposed Elias grew restless. They could no longer ignore the fact that a human had succeeded where Valerian doctors had failed. Fear of change and loss of control fueled their anger. One of the senior advisors, a man named Valor, decided that Elias had to be removed before his influence over the princess grew too strong. Valor confronted Kilara privately. "Your Highness, do you not see the danger?" he said sharply. "A human has interfered with your health and your future. It is unnatural. The court cannot allow this to continue. You must send him away." Kilara's eyes flashed with determination. "I am not a child, Valor," she said firmly. "I am the heir to Valaris, and I make my own decisions. Elias has saved my life. That is all that matters." Valor scowled. "You are blinded by gratitude. He is a stranger, a human. You risk everything for him." "I risk everything for life," Kilara replied. "And if you cannot understand that, then you are not fit to advise me." The tension reached a boiling point when Valor gathered a group of court officials and stormed into the palace laboratory. Elias and Leora were performing routine checks on Kilara's vitals when the intruders entered. "Stop this madness," Valor shouted. "Human interference ends now." Elias stood calmly, placing himself between Kilara and the intruders. "I am here to help her," he said firmly. "If you try to stop me, you risk undoing everything we have accomplished." The court officials hesitated. Many had seen Kilara's improvement firsthand. Some were torn between tradition and the undeniable results before them. Kilara stepped forward, her voice steady despite her weakened state. "I am alive because of him," she said. "Do not let fear dictate my life. Elias stays." Valor's face hardened. He realized he could not challenge the princess directly, but he would not give up. That night he sent a secret message to the Valerian High Council, framing Elias as a dangerous outsider whose continued presence threatened the stability of the kingdom. Meanwhile, Elias continued his work, unaware of the growing political storm. He focused on refining the treatment, ensuring it would be fully effective. Leora suggested experimenting with a new energy modulation technique, which could accelerate Kilara's recovery. Elias agreed, and they began careful trials. Kilara's body responded well. She could now walk longer distances, speak without tiring, and even take short excursions outside the palace walls. Citizens who had feared for her life now marveled at her return to health. They whispered about the human doctor who dared to heal a princess, and slowly admiration replaced skepticism. Yet the threat of betrayal lingered. Valor and his allies were patient, waiting for the right moment to strike. Elias sensed tension in the palace, though he did not know its source. He only knew that every day counted, that Kilara's life was fragile, and that he could not afford distraction. One afternoon, as Elias prepared a new round of therapy, he noticed subtle changes in Kilara's vitals, fluctuations that suggested stress or external interference. He confronted Kilara gently. "Is something troubling you?" he asked. Kilara shook her head, though her eyes betrayed worry. "It is the court. Some are unhappy with your presence. They may act against us." Elias frowned. "Then we must be careful. I will protect you. No one will harm you while I am here." Kilara smiled faintly. "I believe you," she said. "That is what gives me strength." The breakthrough came when Elias and Leora combined human cellular therapy with Valerian energy modulation in a new way. This hybrid treatment seemed to fully stabilize Kilara's bioelectric field and strengthen her immune system. Her recovery accelerated, and the princess regained almost full strength. The palace buzzed with astonishment. Citizens and sympathetic officials could not believe the transformation. Kilara, once pale and weak, now walked through the halls with a glow of vitality. The news reached even the High Council, forcing them to acknowledge Elias' achievement. But just as hope reached its peak, betrayal struck. Valor's faction attempted a bold move. They tried to detain Elias during a routine check of Kilara's vitals, accusing him of interfering with royal life. Elias, anticipating trouble, had prepared for such a scenario. With Leora's help, he avoided capture and protected Kilara, ensuring her safety above all else. The confrontation was tense, a test of courage and wit. Valor's faction realized they could not easily overpower a human determined to act with reason, intelligence, and skill. Kelara, witnessing the loyalty and bravery of Elias firsthand, realized that humans possessed qualities no Valerian technology or tradition could match: courage, ingenuity, and the willingness to risk everything for the life of another. By the end of the conflict, Elias' position was secure, but fragile. He had proven his value and loyalty, yet the palace politics remained volatile. Kelara, fully aware of the risk he had taken, promised to protect him as she recovered. The princess's respect for humans deepened, and she began to see her own people's prejudices in a new light. "You have changed my life," she told Elias quietly one evening. "I will never forget what you have done, not just for my health, but for my hope." Elias smiled gently. "It is not just me. We work together, and hope is something humans and Valerian alike can share." The story of Elias Harper and Princess Kelara spread quietly through Valaris. Whispers turned to admiration, and admiration slowly turned to acceptance. Humans, once dismissed as primitive, were now seen as capable of extraordinary courage and intelligence. And Kelara, strengthened by her recovery and inspired by Elias' example, began to envision a future where humans and Valerian scientists could work together to solve challenges that no one species could face alone. In the quiet of the palace, as the twin moons cast silver light over the gardens, Kelara and Elias stood side by side. The bond between them was not merely of patient and doctor. It was one of trust, courage, and mutual respect. Both knew the journey ahead would not be easy. The court remained wary, and Valaris itself was full of challenges. But for the first time in months, the princess felt a sense of safety and hope, and Elias knew that his presence had made a difference greater than any he had imagined. Together, they had faced impossible odds, defied prejudice, and discovered the strength that arises when courage and compassion guide action. And in that quiet, glowing palace, both human and Valerian realized something extraordinary. Life, no matter how fragile, was worth fighting for, and hope, when nurtured, could change the course of worlds. The weeks following the court conflict marked a new chapter in Kelara's life. Her energy had returned fully, her pulse steady, and her mind sharp. She could walk the palace halls without assistance, speak in council meetings, and even participate in ceremonial duties. The once frail princess now carried herself with renewed confidence, a living testament to Elias Harper's ingenuity and dedication. The transformation did more than heal her body, it changed the atmosphere of the entire palace. Whispers that once carried doubt now spoke of amazement. Citizens and officials alike began to view humans differently. A species that had once been dismissed as weak and unpredictable now appeared capable of solving impossible problems. Elias' success challenged long-held prejudices, demonstrating that courage, intelligence, and compassion were not confined to any one species. Kelara, fully aware of the delicate politics, worked carefully to consolidate the change. She insisted that Elias remain at the palace not as a guest, but as a valued collaborator. Elias spent his days refining treatments and studying Valerian health systems. Even though Kelara was stable, he refused to stop. He wanted to ensure her recovery was permanent, while also finding ways to improve the lives of other Valerian citizens who suffered from similar but less severe conditions. Leora assisted him daily, fascinated by his methods. Human medicine, she realized, was more flexible than Valerian practices. Humans were willing to experiment, to learn from failure, and to improvise solutions when no clear path existed. Valerian science was precise, but sometimes its rules limited innovation. Together, Elias and Leora combined the best of both worlds, creating hybrid treatments that could benefit everyone on Valaris. Kelara watched the work closely. She had learned that leadership was not just about commanding people, it was about seeing potential where others saw obstacles. Elias demonstrated that principle daily. When a new treatment failed, he analyzed why, adjusted the approach, and tried again. His patience and determination inspired Kelara, reminding her that true courage was often quiet and steady, not loud or forceful. One morning, as the sun rose over the crystalline towers, Kelara entered the laboratory to find Elias and Leora examining a set of bio-sculpted cells. "Good morning, Princess," Elias said with a small smile. "I think we're close to perfecting the stabilization protocol." Soon every patient with similar genetic conditions could receive this treatment. Kalara's eyes sparkled. "You're not just saving me," she said softly. "You're saving countless lives. That is incredible." Elias shook his head. "It's not just me. We're combining human ingenuity with Valerian knowledge. It is a partnership. That is what makes it work." The palace began to notice the change in Kalara herself. Where she had once appeared delicate and uncertain, she now walked with purpose. She addressed the council, spoke to citizens, and participated in planning new projects. Her confidence was inspiring, and many started to view her as a symbol of progress. Some of the more traditional members of the court remained skeptical, but even they could not deny the results. Kalara's health and vitality were proof that collaboration across species could yield extraordinary outcomes. Elias had demonstrated that humans, often underestimated, were capable of incredible creativity and courage when faced with challenges. With Kalara fully recovered, Elias suggested expanding their work beyond the palace. "We've helped the princess, but many others still suffer from chronic illnesses," he said. "If we adapt the treatments for the public, we could improve life across Valaris." Kalara agreed. She announced plans to establish an interstellar medical alliance that would unite human and Valerian scientists. The idea was revolutionary, challenging the old belief that humans were too fragile to contribute meaningfully to Valerian society. Yet Kalara's reputation and Elia's demonstrated skill lent credibility to the proposal. The first public trials were cautious. Volunteers received the hybrid treatment under close observation. Results exceeded expectations. Patients recovered faster, experienced fewer side effects, and showed long-term improvements. Word spread, and soon humans were no longer viewed as outsiders but as valuable partners in science and medicine. Even those who had opposed Elias initially were forced to acknowledge his contributions. Slowly, the court began to change. Policies were adjusted to allow controlled collaboration between human and Valerian scientists. Kalara, now a symbol of courage and vision, led the effort, advocating for a future where knowledge transcended prejudice. The success of the medical program brought Kalara and Elias closer, though their bond remained professional and deeply respectful. Kalara often observed Elias in his work, fascinated by his focus, creativity, and humility. He, in turn, admired her leadership and her courage to challenge tradition. Their collaboration became an example for others, showing that mutual respect and trust could achieve remarkable results. One evening, Kalara invited Elias to walk through the palace gardens. The twin moons reflected off the crystalline fountains, casting soft light over the paths. "You've changed more than my health, Elias," Kalara said quietly. "You've changed the way my people see the world. You've taught us that courage, ingenuity, and compassion are stronger than fear and prejudice." Elias smiled. "I only did what humans try to do every day: act when we can, learn when we fail, and keep trying. You gave me the chance to help, Princess." "That is what made it possible," Kalara nodded. "I will never forget what you have done, not just for me, but for everyone who will benefit from your knowledge." The story of Elias' achievements began to spread beyond the palace. Citizens spoke of the human doctor who dared to save a princess, a man who combined courage with skill to change lives. Children asked about him in the streets, inspired by his example. Scholars studied his methods, incorporating human innovation into Valerian science. Even distant planets heard of the collaboration, sparking discussions about cooperation between species across the galaxy. The influence of humans, once considered insignificant, grew steadily. Their resilience, creativity, and courage became known and respected. Valerian society slowly began to embrace the idea that strength came not just from tradition or technology, but from the willingness to act, learn, and adapt. Kalara herself became an advocate for unity and progress. She initiated projects to train young Valerian scientists alongside humans, fostering a culture of shared knowledge. The palace, once a symbol of rigid tradition, became a center of innovation and collaboration. Elias worked tirelessly, not for fame or recognition, but because he believed in the value of helping others. The triumph was not just medical, it was cultural. Humans, long underestimated, had proven their worth not through power or force, but through courage, intelligence, and compassion. Kelara, fully recovered and inspired by their example, led her people into a new era of understanding. Even as the palace celebrated their successes, Elias and Kelara remained mindful of the challenges that lay ahead. The old factions of the court were still present, and some continued to resist change. But the proof of human ingenuity could not be ignored. The example set by Elias' work and Kelara's leadership began to inspire a new generation of leaders, scholars, and citizens. One morning, as Elias prepared a new round of treatment trials, Kelara approached him. "Elias," she said, "you've done more than heal me. You've opened doors that we never thought possible. I want to make sure that this work continues, that humans and Valerian scientists keep working together. Can we do that?" Elias looked at her with quiet determination. "We can, and we will. Together we'll show that courage and knowledge know no species," Kelara smiled. "Then let us begin." In the months that followed, the hybrid medical program expanded across Valaris. Hospitals and research centers implemented the treatments, helping thousands of citizens. Success stories appeared in every corner of the planet, and the legend of Elias Harper, the human doctor who had dared to heal a princess, grew. Kelara, now fully empowered and healthy, continued to lead with wisdom and courage, her vision guiding Valerian society toward unity and innovation. Elias, meanwhile, remained dedicated to his work, not seeking recognition, but driven by the knowledge that one person's courage could change countless lives. Humans were no longer seen as primitive or weak. They were collaborators, teachers, and pioneers. In the quiet moments, Kelara often reflected on the journey. She remembered the fear, the weakness, and the despair. And she remembered the human who had stood by her, who had risked everything for her life. She knew she would never forget him, and that his courage would continue to inspire generations to come. Valaris, once a world divided by tradition and fear, had begun to embrace change. And in the heart of the palace, amidst the glow of crystal towers and luminous gardens, the triumph of human ingenuity shone brightly, lighting the path for a new era. Hope, courage, and the willingness to act had transformed not just a princess, but an entire world. And for Kelara and Elias, the journey was far from over. Together, they had proven that life, knowledge, and unity could overcome even the most impossible odds. Months had passed since Princess Kelara's recovery. The palace of Valaris had transformed alongside her. Where once the corridors whispered with fear and doubt, now they hummed with energy, curiosity, and collaboration. Humans, once viewed with suspicion, were now welcomed as valued allies in science and medicine. And at the center of this transformation stood Dr. Elias Harper, the human doctor who had dared to challenge tradition and risked everything to save a life. Kelara moved through the palace gardens one morning, her steps steady, her posture full of confidence. She passed glowing fountains and floating gardens, the soft bioluminescent light reflecting in her eyes. This was no longer a palace defined by fear of the unknown. It was a palace of possibility, a place where knowledge and courage shaped the future. And she knew that one human had made all the difference. Elias was in the laboratory, reviewing the results of a new series of hybrid treatments. Volunteers from across Valaris had been receiving the therapy, and the results were encouraging. Chronic illnesses were improving, immune systems were strengthening, and the citizens were healthier than they had been in generations. "Dr. Harper," Kelara called, approaching with a smile, "you must take a break. You've been working tirelessly, and the program is running smoothly." Elias looked up, slightly startled but smiling. "I cannot stop entirely, Princess. There is still much to do." Kelara placed a hand gently on his arm. "You've already changed more than you realize. Thousands are healthier, and an entire society has learned to see humans in a new light. That is more than any one person could hope to achieve." Elias nodded, humbled. "It is because of you, Princess. You gave me the chance to help. Without your trust, none of this would be possible." Kelara's gaze softened. "And without your courage and dedication, I might not be here today. I will never forget what you have done, Elias." The Valerian High Council, once resistant to change, now acknowledged the value of human collaboration. They had invited Elias to address the council, an event unthinkable months earlier. As he entered the chamber, the room fell silent. Nobles, scholars, and advisors listened as he explained the science behind the hybrid treatments, detailing how human methods could enhance Valerian biotechnology. He spoke with clarity, humility, and passion. "Science is not about species. It is about curiosity, courage, and the desire to help others, he said. When we work together, we can achieve what was once impossible. Princess Kelara trusted me with her life. Together, we have discovered the potential of collaboration across worlds. Let this be the beginning, not the exception. The council members exchanged glances. Some nodded slowly, their skepticism giving way to respect. Others remained cautious, but even they could not ignore the evidence. Kelara's health, the thriving patients, and the innovations in the palace laboratories spoke louder than words. After the council meeting, Kelara approached Elias in private. "You've done more than I could have imagined," she said. "Your presence has changed Valaris forever. I want to ensure your contributions are honored, not just remembered, but celebrated in a way that inspires future generations." Elias shook his head. "I do not need recognition. My goal was to save your life and improve the lives of others. That is enough." Kelara smiled, determined. "No, your courage deserves more. You have shown what humans can do when they act with intelligence, compassion, and bravery. I want your name to be remembered here on Valaris for centuries to come." The next weeks were filled with ceremonies and celebrations. Citizens, scholars, and officials came from across Valaris to honor Elias. Statues were commissioned in the palace gardens, not only of Kelara, but of the human who had saved her. Schools and universities included lessons about his methods, showing students how courage and ingenuity could overcome fear and tradition. Elias, though modest, accepted the recognition graciously. He did not seek it, but he understood the importance of inspiring others. Young Valerian scientists approached him with questions, eager to learn. Children asked about the human who had saved a princess, dreaming of adventures beyond their world. Elias spent hours teaching, sharing both knowledge and the lessons of courage and persistence he had learned as a human navigating an alien world. Kelara, fully restored and thriving, took an active role in the creation of the Interstellar Medical Alliance. She invited humans to collaborate with Valerian scientists on research and public health initiatives. Hospitals implemented hybrid treatments, schools trained young scientists in cross-species methods, and communities benefited from improved medical care. Valaris, once wary of outsiders, had opened itself to the universe. Elias watched the changes with quiet satisfaction. He had not only saved a life but helped transform a society. Humans, often underestimated, had proven themselves capable of greatness, not through force, but through courage, creativity, and empathy. The example of what one person could achieve resonated throughout Valaris, encouraging the next generation to dream bigger and act boldly. One evening, Kelara and Elias walked through the palace gardens under the twin moons. The air was calm, filled with the gentle hum of energy from the crystalline fountains. "You've given us more than medicine," Kelara said softly. "You've given us hope, courage, and a vision for the future." Elias glanced at her. It was never about fame or recognition. It was about life, about trying when others would give up. That is something every human learns early, and something I hope every Valerian can learn too. Kelara smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "I will make sure they do, and I will make sure they remember you, not just for saving my life, but for showing us what courage and humanity truly mean." The alliance expanded beyond Valaris. Other planets, curious about the success of human-Valerian collaboration, reached out for advice and partnership. The story of Elias Harper became legendary across multiple star systems. Humans, once underestimated and dismissed, were now recognized as pioneers of courage, intelligence, and collaboration. Kelara's leadership ensured that these lessons were preserved and shared. Elias, though he remained humble, understood the impact of his work. He had faced an impossible challenge, risked his life and reputation, and acted purely out of a desire to help. In doing so, he had transformed not only one life but an entire society, and in a way, humanity itself had been honored across the stars. Kelara continued to thrive. Her health was strong, her leadership confident, and her vision clear. The palace that once symbolized fear of outsiders now represented unity and innovation. Citizens respected her not just for surviving her illness, but for her courage to embrace change and trust in the unknown. Elias continued to work, traveling across Valaris and sometimes to neighboring planets, sharing his knowledge. Yet whenever he returned to the palace, he was greeted warmly, not as an outsider, but as a respected colleague, mentor, and friend. His bond with Kelara had grown deep, not romantic but profoundly human. Trust, respect, and mutual admiration defined their relationship, and it inspired everyone around them. Years later, statues of Kilara and Elias stood side by side in the palace gardens. Students studied their stories, learning that courage and knowledge could transcend species and culture. Children played near the fountains where Elias had once measured energy fields, imagining themselves as scientists, doctors, and explorers. The palace halls, once heavy with tradition and fear, now echoed with curiosity, learning, and laughter. Kilara often walked among the students, remembering the day Elias had arrived. She remembered her weakness, her fear, and the despair she had felt. And she remembered the human who had dared to help her when no one else would. She whispered quietly to herself, "I will never forget him." And Vilaris will never forget the lesson he taught us. Courage, intelligence, and compassion are stronger than fear, and life is always worth fighting for. Elias Harper, once a human among aliens, had become a symbol of hope. His courage, ingenuity, and willingness to act had transformed a princess, a society, and the perception of humans across the stars. He had shown that even a single life, when guided by determination and empathy, could change the course of history. In the glow of Vilaris's twin moons, the palace stood as a testament to collaboration, courage, and the triumph of hope. Kilara and Elias had proven that the impossible could be achieved when fear was set aside, and humanity, both human and Valerian, was allowed to shine. And in every corner of Vilaris, the story of the human who dared to heal a princess became a legend, remembered forever as a testament to courage, friendship, and the enduring power of life.